Okay, now we've done our setup. So now we're just going to start scanning. So the first scanner we're going to use is the Vantage scanner. So just drag it out and put it into the world, and you can see it's got this sort of like boundary around it, and that's the area that it's going to scan. So obviously this is a pretty small area. We can make it a lot bigger by changing the number of samples. So it's going to increase the samples. It's going to do a much larger area. Let's put it around here. And the reason you can make it, you can change the size of it, is that you can scan parts of a map, and then later on, if you make a change to that map, like, so if I do a scan and then I move this block somewhere else, I don't need to rescan the whole map. I can just scan this small area, and it will just replace the data that's inside the area without losing all the other data. So let's set up the scanner. By default, these are like the default settings, but of course you're going to have to change all of these to match your character. So the eye height, maybe I should change the name of this to gun height. It depends what you're using this for. For the character that I'm going to use, the gun is actually at 100 centimeters above the ground. And then the debug time after scan indicates how long the little arrows will stay up on the screen after you've done the scan. It's just for debugging. So I'm just going to set it for 5 seconds. Now this part here, this is what I was talking about earlier, where it will clear the data from the scan area before the scan. So if you've scanned your whole map, let's say, and then you want to do a new scan, this makes sure that there's no duplicates. This will remove anything that's in the scan area, but it won't touch anything that's outside the scan area. Append scan to existing data. So let's say we've scanned this area, and then we move it over. We can click append scan, and it'll scan this next area, and then we'll have both areas. So we're just adding the data to the existing data that we already have. Okay, samples we already talked about. This is the file path. You should have already set it in your global settings. Okay, I think that's everything. Oh, and there is the delete button down here. So you can use any scanner to delete data. So it'll go into this file on the hard drive and delete out all of the data that's inside the scan area. So you can use your scanner as a deleter as well. So let's do a scan of this area. So this is a checkbox, but it works like a button. So when you click it, it'll do the scan. It's sort of frozen for a little while. I can't move the camera, but it is working. And you'll know when it's done, because if you have your debug time, some debugging will show up, like these little arrows. Yeah, so now it's done the scan. And we need to re-import the data to see if it worked. If you haven't done a scan before, you're going to have to go re-import with new files. There's all our data we just collected. Okay, now that we've scanned a bunch of vantage points, let's add a vantage point object, the map object, this one right here, and it's going to hold the data points when we're actually playing the game. And so all the AI that wants to access this data will refer to this object here that's in the map. It also allows us to visualize what data points we have collected so far. So I'll go into this in more detail in a minute, but like right now, we're just going to use it for the debugging. So just make sure that it's turned on and that it has debugging also turned on. And also make sure that this table is referring to the Vantages. And I'm using simulate here instead of play. So actually I'll show you. If you click this drop down, you can normally it's set to selected viewport. Make sure you have it on simulated. just so that we can fly around and look at the points. So it looks good. You can see which points scanned and which ones didn't. For example, you know, like this circle here, it didn't scan, and that's on purpose because it's below 100 centimeters tall. And so the AI won't be able to use it as cover because it's too short. Here you can see like this point right here is at exactly 100 centimeters, and so it does count as cover. But like basically you would take cover, or the AI would take cover here and look that way. And on this one, the AI would take cover and look this way. For these ones that are double-sided, it would be like this or like this. And both of those are good. So it's a little bit arbitrary sometimes why the algorithm removes certain directions and certain points. I mean, it's not actually arbitrary, but in order to eliminate bad points, sometimes we needed to eliminate good points. Oh, and you can see that these blue objects, these blue cubes, don't have any vantage points. And the reason is that those are dynamic objects, as in if a character walks into them, they can like fly around because they have physics enabled, and so they're likely to move. And our scanner only does static objects, so we can't do anything where it's moving. You could probably change the code and make it work with dynamic objects, but that would get really complicated, and I'm going to leave that to you because I don't care about that personally. So it's up to you to do that. I should also mention that you only need one of these in your level. It'll load all of the data that's in the table, and so it doesn't matter where it is. It can be anywhere. It's just a single object that holds the data. I don't really know if this is a good way to do it. It was just the only way I thought of. There is probably a better way to hold the data that all the AI could access that single data source. But I don't know how to do that. So if you have any better ideas, please send me a message. Okay, so we've got some vantage points, but let's say it missed a point that we think should be a vantage point. So we can add our own custom vantage point. Okay, it's hard to say vantage sometimes. So you can use this thing, place vantage point, to add your own. And you can see there's little guys there to help you. And you can set the eye height just like before. Let's set it to 100, and now they'll shrink their feet into the ground. And let's say we want to put this right here. So we think there should be a vantage point on this corner, but the scanner didn't give us one. So we can just put it there, drag it over, rotate it how we want. We should align it so that the this red line should be aligned with this wall, and this one should be aligned with that wall. If it's not a perfect right angle, that's fine, whatever. All we really want is this yellow line facing perpendicular, I think, to that corner. And then we can also set it to sidedness, or which direction are you going to look from. So left only, so you'd have a person standing there and pointing that way. I think that looks pretty good. Or you can go the other way, or you can say both. I think left only looks pretty good for that. And actually, yeah. And then you just say add point to data. I don't know why it draws a circle. Go to the vantage point data, and we'll just check. It's got 50 right now. We re-import. Now we've got 51. Perfect. We don't need this little guy anymore. There we go. Now we have a point there. Kind of annoying to use that thing, so I don't recommend using it a whole lot. Okay, now we have a bunch of vantage points. We know they're good. So let's just add an NPC that's going to use these vantage points. So I have this one. So naturally, it's a lollipop with a gummy worm used as a gun. And so it just uses this Vantage AI behavior tree. It just finds a target, finds its target, and then it finds the closest vantage point. And then once it finds it, it moves to that position, and then it focuses on the target, and then it waits a little while. And that's it. Of course, the natural enemy of a lollipop is a popsicle, and so there's the target. And if we click play or simulate, we can see that it is in fact working. So it's pretty easy to set up. Of course, you're going to have to set this up with your own AI, and you're going to have to figure out how to integrate this into your own project. I did set it up really quickly with the, where is it? This person? There it is. And so let's see if this works. Yep. Wow, smooth. So that's how to set up the Vantages.